My fiancé and I confronted a man we thought was a close friend after he inappropriately touched my 19-year-old sister at a barbecue. His wife brushed it off. He never responded. And now everything we are going to do something that he's going to remember his whole life. I'm 27, Italian, and I live in Italy with my fiancé, who's 35 and German. We've been together for a few years now, and while we come from different cultures, we've found a beautiful rhythm in the life we're building here. A few months ago, something really lovely happened. We became close friends with a couple in their 40s who live just outside our town. The wife is Italian like me, and her husband is from New Zealand. They moved here about 5 years ago with their 2 boys, and they had this warm, inviting energy that made it so easy to be around them. They felt like one of those families you always admire from a distance, the kind that seems grounded, affectionate, full of laughter, always hosting something, poker nights, beach volleyball games, weekend barbecues. And then suddenly, we were part of that circle. We clicked so quickly, I sometimes found myself wondering how we hadn't met sooner. We'd talk for hours, share wine and stories, play music in their garden as the kids ran around barefoot. There was this ease with them. No pressure, no drama, just the simple joy of good company. We genuinely trusted them. They weren't just acquaintances. They became our friends. So, when they invited us over for another barbecue, I didn't think twice about bringing my younger sister along. She's 19 and had come to visit me from our hometown. It was her first proper trip away on her own, and I was excited to show her a glimpse of the life I've built here. I wanted her to meet the people who made this place feel more like home. And, honestly, I thought she'd have a great time. I thought she'd feel safe. The evening started like so many others had, laughter bubbling up around the grill, wine glasses clinking, music floating out of a portable speaker someone had perched on a windowsill. Kids darted through our legs with popsicles, and the air smelled like rosemary and grilled meat. My sister was a bit shy at first, but she warmed up quickly. Everyone was welcoming, and the husband even joked with her in this lighthearted way, trying to guess her music taste and make her laugh. I remember thinking, this is perfect. She's going to remember this night forever. We were all drinking a bit too much, truthfully. It's something that happened often at their place. The drinks kept flowing, someone would start dancing, and before you knew it, the hours had slipped by. But later, when we got home, something shifted. My fiancé was unusually quiet. I was a little buzzed, tipsy enough to be giddy, but not drunk enough to miss the tension in his face. When I asked him what was wrong, he didn't answer right away. He kept looking over at my sister, who had already changed into pajamas and curled up on the couch with her phone, a little too quiet for someone who'd just come back from a party. Eventually, he said it. He told me he'd seen something at the barbecue, something that had made his stomach turn. He said the husband had stood very close to my sister, closer than necessary. His hand was too low on her back. He thought maybe it was just a drunken mistake, maybe he misread it. But then it happened again. He saw it. The same hand, the same space being invaded. And this time, it didn't look innocent at all. I felt this cold wave of disbelief rush over me. Not him. Not the man who always laughed the loudest, who played cards with us for hours, who kissed his kids on the forehead in front of everyone. I wanted to believe it had to be some misunderstanding. Alcohol does strange things. People get sloppy. Maybe it didn't mean what it looked like. But my fiancé wasn't convinced. And when he turned to my sister and asked, gently, "Did something happen?" her whole face changed. She froze. She looked at me, then at him, and for a moment, everything hung in silence. Then she started crying. Not loud sobs, just this soft, helpless unraveling. And then she said it. Yes. He had touched her. Inappropriately. Twice. The first time, she brushed it off. She thought maybe it was an accident. But it made her so uncomfortable, she got up to get herself a glass of water. She thought putting a little distance might help. But when she sat back down, it happened again. This time more deliberate, more invasive. She didn't know what to do. She said she froze. She didn't want to ruin the evening. She didn't want to make a scene. I sat there, not even knowing what to say. I couldn't cry. I couldn't speak. I just felt this heavy, numbing disbelief wrap around me like a blanket. What hurt even more than the shock, even more than the anger, was seeing my sister feel guilty. She kept saying things like, "I didn't want to ruin your night," and "I wasn't sure if I was overreacting," or worse, "Maybe I shouldn't have worn that dress." I can barely type those words without my stomach turning. Watching her cry like that, small, hunched over, ashamed of something that wasn't her fault, shattered me in a way I didn't expect. She's 19. She's still so young. She's visiting her big sister in a new place, just trying to be part of our world, and this is what she gets? And then to see her blame herself? I felt like the floor had opened up beneath me. I should have protected her. I brought her there. I told her it was safe. I put her in the orbit of someone who didn't deserve to be called a friend, and I didn't see it coming. I didn't notice anything. I didn't even sense her discomfort. What kind of sister doesn't pick up on that? I keep going back in my head, replaying the night like a broken film reel. Was there a moment I should have seen it? A look in her eyes, a shift in her body language? How could I have been so blind? I was sipping wine and laughing while she was being touched in ways she didn't want to be. I was singing along to some stupid song on their patio while she was trying to hold herself together. And now it's not just about what he did. It's about the breach of something much deeper.
Trust. Safety.
Innocence. This man, this person we welcomed into our lives, into our conversations, into our home, violated all of that. I feel sick just thinking about it. It's like someone reached into the center of a warm, beautiful memory and poisoned it. What makes it even more complicated is the fact that his wife is lovely.
Truly.
She's kind. She's generous. She laughs with her whole face. I've sat with her for hours on end, talking about everything from raising kids to favorite books to missing old friends. And their kids.
God.
Their boys are sweet and clever and innocent. They don't deserve to have their lives shaken by this. They didn't ask for any of it. But at the same time, this can't just be ignored. It can't be swept under the rug like it was a weird accident or a drunken misunderstanding. That man knew what he was doing.
Twice.
He knew and he didn't stop. So my fiancé and I talked. A lot. We were angry, yes, but also deeply, deeply sad. Sad for my sister, for the space that's been broken between us and this other family. And for the way things used to feel so simple, so safe. My fiancé is going to confront him, alone and calmly. Not to scream or make a scene, but to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what we know. That we saw him. That we believe my sister. That we know what happened, and we are not staying silent. This isn't about revenge. We're not trying to destroy anyone's family. But we're not protecting a predator either. We're not going to sit across a dinner table and pretend everything's okay, when it's not. He doesn't get to walk away from this, as if nothing happened. That's not how this works. That's not what decency looks like. I wish things were different. I wish I could go back in time and take my sister's hand and say, we're leaving.
Right now.
I wish I could shield her from that moment, from that man. But I can't. And that's a hard truth I have to carry now. This whole experience has shifted something in me. I used to be so open. I trusted easily, maybe even too easily. I always believed that people who seemed warm and kind probably were. But now I realize how good people can be at hiding things. How charm and friendliness and community can be a disguise. It only takes one moment, one quiet violation for the mask to fall away. And when it does, there's no unseeing it. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how to navigate this fallout. I just know that something inside me has changed. I feel more guarded now. More wary. I hate that. But I guess this is what it means to grow up sometimes. To see the cracks in people, even the ones you thought you knew. I feel like shit, honestly. For not protecting her. For not noticing. For ever thinking he was safe. 3 days later. That's how long it took us to sit with everything. To absorb the weight of it. To sift through our thoughts. Our anger. The confusion. And also, honestly, to give ourselves space to breathe. It wasn't avoidance. It was survival. Because when something this violating happens so close to home, when it strikes right through the circle of people you trusted most, it takes time to figure out how to even begin moving forward. And in those 3 days, so much surfaced. The rage. The guilt. The sadness. The raw protective instinct that kicked in every time I looked at my sister. She wasn't just shaken. She was furious. Not just at him, but at the world, at herself, at me sometimes, too. And I understand it. I truly do. I know her anger isn't meant to hurt me, even when it cuts a little. It's her trying to claw back control in a situation where she felt utterly powerless. But hearing her say things like, I should have known better, or you shouldn't have left me alone at that table, or asterisk, I'll never go back to a place like that again. Those things sit with me, replaying over and over in my mind when I try to fall asleep. It hurts. God, it hurts. Because she's my little sister. I'm the one who is supposed to protect her. I invited her there. I told her she'd be safe. And she wasn't. We also read so many messages, comments from people telling us what we had to do. That we must tell the wife. That silence protects the abuser, not the victim. That doing nothing would be complicity. I understood their urgency. I even agreed with them. But what none of them could see was the nuance of our pain. The hesitation wasn't about sparing him.
It was about the how.
About making sure my sister was okay with the next step. That she felt safe, heard, included. This wasn't our story to hijack. It was hers, and she needed to lead the pace. So we sat down with her. We talked. Slowly. Carefully. It wasn't easy. She was still raw, still defensive, still angry, and rightfully so. But she listened. And in the end, she said something that struck me. She said, "The only justice I'm going to get is if they both know what he did." I want her to look him in the eye and know what kind of man she's married to. I want him to see what it cost. That's when we made the decision. Not to meet in person, not yet, maybe not ever. But to create a group chat with both the husband and wife and lay it all out. We spent hours writing that message, rewriting it, rereading it aloud to each other. We didn't want it to be explosive or emotional to the point of collapse. We wanted it to be undeniable. Just the truth. As it happened. As witnessed. As experienced by my sister. We started by saying that something extremely serious had occurred during the last time we were at their house, and that we could no longer stay silent about it. We explained, clearly, calmly, that my fiancé had witnessed the husband's behavior toward my sister, and that though he wasn't entirely sure at the time, her later confirmation made everything clear. It was inappropriate. It was unwelcome. And it happened twice. We didn't mince words. We said how deeply it hurt us, not just what happened, but who it happened with. How much trust was broken. How we felt betrayed, deceived, and profoundly disappointed. We didn't ask for anything from them. No apology. No explanation. No attempt to salvage the friendship. This wasn't about forgiveness. This was about accountability. My sister said something that stayed with me while we wrote that message. He'll never face legal consequences. He'll never see a courtroom. So this is the only consequence that matters to me, that they both have to carry the weight of what he did. And I admired her for that. She didn't want silence.
She didn't want to protect the peace.
She didn't want to pretend that being polite was more important than telling the truth.
So, we hit send.
That moment, it was a strange one. I felt my chest tighten, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, and finally took the step off. There was no taking it back. No way to soften what was done. But it also felt right. Like we were honoring her experience. Like we were standing beside her, not just in words, but in action.
I don't know what their response will be.
Maybe denial. Maybe silence. Maybe shame. Maybe deflection. I don't really care. We didn't expect much in the way of a response. But even knowing that, nothing really prepares you for the quiet cruelty of someone sidestepping accountability. Especially someone you once called a friend. It was the wife who finally replied, privately, and without including her husband. She said she was sorry for what had happened, and sorry that my sister felt uncomfortable. But the tone turned quickly. It was subtle at first, but then came the sting. She implied we were blowing things out of proportion. That we were making it more of a big deal than it actually is. And in her opinion, there was no reason this had to be the end of our friendship. She closed the message with a final brush off. Best of luck. Goodbye. 2 exclamation marks. As if this were just a petty disagreement over dinner plans or a misunderstood joke, not something that cut straight to the heart of trust, safety, and integrity. No real apology. No ownership. No accountability. Just a giant emotional wall. Polite on the surface, passive-aggressive underneath. It felt like being gaslit all over again. And still from him, nothing. Silence. She said he'd respond to my fiancé in his own words, but days have passed. Nothing. Not a word. Not a denial. Not an apology. Not even an attempt to defend himself. Just silence. Which, honestly, says everything. What struck me the most, though, is what didn't happen. Before all of this, it was normal for them to text us a day or 2 after a barbecue. Thanks for coming. Want to do drinks this weekend? That rhythm had become a part of our life. Familiar.
Easy.
But after that night, nothing. Not a single message. Not even a check-in with my sister to ask how she was doing, if she was okay. Just nothing. And that's when it hit me. She probably already knew. Maybe not about that night specifically. But something. You don't live with someone for over a decade and not catch glimpses of who they really are. Maybe she's seen enough to know it wasn't out of character. Maybe she's spent years convincing herself it's easier to stay quiet. Maybe silence has been her own form of survival. Still, that doesn't make it right. What hurts most is knowing this didn't have to go this way. If either of them had just owned what happened, even part of it, if they had expressed real regret, something human and raw and honest, maybe we could have found some ground to stand on. Not reconciliation, probably, but closure. Instead, what we got was a door slammed shut in our faces. And maybe that's for the best. Because at the end of the day, no matter how painful this process has been, one thing is absolutely clear. We stood by my sister. We listened to her. We believed her. And we refused to let this get buried under shame or social niceties or that cowardly instinct to just move on and pretend it didn't happen. We didn't stay silent. And that gives me peace. I'm proud of her for speaking up. For not shrinking into that place where victims often feel forced to go, somewhere quiet, apologetic, unsure. She claimed her voice. And we backed her. That's the only kind of justice we had power over, and we chose to use it. As for them,
I don't know what happens next.
I imagine they'll continue on as they have, hosting barbecues, posting smiling photos, protecting the illusion. I imagine she'll stand by him, whether out of fear, habit, or denial. Maybe she thinks she's doing the right thing. Maybe she just can't face what's real. That's their story to live with now. Ours is different. Ours has a scar, yes, but also strength. Because even though we lost what we thought was a meaningful friendship, we gained something more valuable. The knowledge that we did the right thing when it mattered most. We protected my sister. We honored the truth. And we walked away with our integrity intact. That's enough for me. That's everything.